Michael Patrick Shields is on the air.
Good morning, world.
Good morning, Michigan. A very pleasant Thursday to you. This is your time. Why not? Let's make it happen today. This is the day you've been waiting for. You're not nervous. You're ready. You're excited. And so am I. It's nice to have you with us this morning. Rahm Emanuel is, as you know by now, the new mayor of the city of Chicago. We'll talk about the former White House Chief of Staff's role as the big city mayor in Chicago coming up shortly. Also, some salacious details leaking out from a new Sarah Palin tell-all. We'll talk to John Truscott about how damaging those are to her possible presidential aspirations coming up shortly. It's 9 minutes after the hour. Gary Austin is the anchorman with us right now. Good morning to you, Gary.
You sound pretty chipper today. Did you win the lottery last night?
Nobody won the lottery last night.
Geez, I
the
knew it.
Powerball. So where are those stats, Amanda? It goes up to 185 million, I think, now. On is it Saturday? Here it is, right here. Yeah, the Powerball last night. Went over 184 million is the Saturday drawing. So it's getting richer, and the pot's getting bigger. And the Powerball last night was number 29.
So did you come close?
I didn't get I got one number.
One number?
Yeah. So that's it.
You know, you were so optimistic yesterday. At the 24 hours ago, you were like had half of it spent.
I'm not going to quibble with fate. What this means is that I'm going to win more on Saturday.
That's optimism.
Just
I
let
like
fate take its course.
That's right. Very
Right?
good.
That's what I think. Yep. Hey, did you hear that the mayor of the city of Detroit and the governor of Michigan were together again yesterday? I thought it was interesting that Governor Snyder went to Mayor Bing's State of the City speech, didn't you?
Yeah, I think the governor is.
That's unusual, isn't it?
It is.
I don't ever remember that happening.
I think
before.
with so much the Governor Snyder has to deal with, in Lansing, of course, especially now. But, Detroit is important, and, the saying goes, so goes Detroit, so goes the city. And I think, too, yesterday. Yeah, the state, rather. And I think yesterday, too, those protesters out, I'm sure they probably got the attention of quite a few. Probably the governor, too, very concerned about this whole business involving financial managers coming in. Their concern is this. Financial managers come in and they pretty much have carte blanche to do whatever they want to do, and there's serious concern as a result of that collective bargaining and other things that unions have worked for so long to try to get in place could go right down the tubes. And that was the focus of yesterday's most recent, there'll be many more of these, protests at the Capitol yesterday, those concerned about that.
I never forget George Carlin. He always said, you ever heard that expression, down the tubes? He says, what tubes? Anyway, so the governor went to the mayor's State of the City speech the other night, and last night they were together again. They went to the Michigan-Wisconsin basketball game.
Oh.
And they sat side by side. The governor is a big Michigan Wolverine fan because he lives in Ann Arbor there, and he went to Michigan. And, Dave Bing's in the NBA Hall of Fame because he played pro ball. And apparently they were right there, the pictures of them and everything. Bing says it's helpful to get a break every once in a while. Here's what he said.
Every once in a while, you got to have fun. I mean, our jobs are very demanding, and very seldom do we get a chance to do this. So when he invited me, I was honored to come.
Yeah, the governor invited the mayor to come to see the Michigan Wolverine basketball game. He says we don't get a chance to do this very often. We got to get out and relax a little bit.
Yeah.
We deserve it, right? And the governor, this is cut 4, said that he enjoyed hearing Bing's State of the City address on Tuesday night.
I was honored to be there, and I thought it was a good talk, and we're on the right direction in the city of Detroit, thanks to Mayor Bing, the city council, and a lot of good people.
So there you go. The mayor's honored to be invited to the basketball game. The governor's honored to be invited to the State of the City address. Everybody's honored. It's nice, except, the result yesterday wasn't too happy for Rick Snyder of that Michigan-Wisconsin basketball game. Here's what it sounded like on the radio.
Gasser inbounds to Taylor. Taylor against the double team. DeGasser for 3. Oh, no! He faked it! No!
Only it's yes, yes, yes. Michigan loses a heartbreaker at the buzzer yesterday to number 12 Wisconsin, 53-52 at Chrysler Arena. Michigan led 52-50 with just over 5 seconds left in the game. Can you believe it? Josh Gasser hits a three-pointer as the time runs out, and the Wolverines are now 7-9 in the Big Ten.
Yep. It is curious to see Governor Snyder and Mayor Bing there working so close. Especially we know Detroit went very heavy Verge Bernero and Democrat in the last election. So obviously, we see the governor and really making an effort here, and certainly we hear Mayor Bing welcoming the effort by Governor Snyder to try to work real close with the city of Detroit. And I think that's a good thing.
Maybe the two of them should get on a plane now, the governor and the mayor of the city of Detroit, and go down to Lakeland for spring training, because the Tigers, if you want to feel warm, you don't like the snow, you're mad about the winter, tomorrow is the very first Tiger spring training game, 1 o'clock on Friday versus Florida Southern. It's a traditional game that they have against the college there. And Ernie Harwell, the late Ernie Harwell, the Hall of Fame broadcaster, always started the very first Tiger spring training game like this.
Well, lo, the winter's past, the rains are over and gone, the flowers appear on the earth, the time of the singing of birds is here, and the voice of the turtle is heard in our land.
That was a traditional way he started the very first broadcast. So
very,
I thought,
very sad. Yeah, for Ernie Harwell.
Use a little warm-up from Ernie Harwell this morning. These pirates are at it again. Gary, can you believe it? The pirates in Somalia said yesterday they're getting ammunition and men to the 30 hijacked vessels they still have under control. They're going to kill more captives, and they're mad about what happened when the 15 pirates have been detained after they killed those Americans off the coast of Somalia, Oman there, and so the pirates are vowing revenge.
Yeah, how do you combat something like this? I mean, we could turn the 6th Fleet loose in the high seas. You just can't catch these guys. I mean, they have these hideouts, the way they have things arranged. I mean, they're very smart. They know where to go. They certainly know all the hideaway spots, close to the shoreline of any number of a myriad of islands
how come
in that
they're
part
not
of the
called
world.
terrorists?
I beg your pardon?
How come they're not called terrorists?
I don't know.
I mean,
It's
pirates
probably-
kind of romanticizes it, doesn't it?
Well, it does, but I guess bottom line is that's what they are. They're pirates. They have no job per se other than to rob and threaten and in many cases kill others. And again, like we talked about yesterday, for our adventurers, Americans who want to do that kind of business and sail around doing whatever, it is definitely sail at your own risk. Hey, the Tigers, they're starting their business there in Florida today. Not far off, what's happening at Cape Canaveral today, about the same time as the Tigers will be playing.
The last launch of Discovery.
This is it.
4:50 this evening.
Yeah, the final journey on its way. 6 crew members are all set and ready to go. They're going to put in a Italian-made module on the ISS today, and they will do their usual spacewalking. And in all, they'll be up there 11 days, and then that's it. Then they come home, and then what?
And then the shuttlecraft gets mothballed.
Yeah.
Or sent to a museum. They're going to figure out what to do with them yet.
Yep.
It's not the
4:50
last shuttle launch, because there are other orbiters, but the Discovery, this will be the last time up.
And we're told weather-wise it's 80% go today.
Cool. That'd be a nice afternoon in Florida. I wish when that thing goes at 4:50, I were standing on Daytona Beach with the surf going up against my knees, and with a drink in my hand and saluting the astronauts.
Yeah, young man.
It's the least I could do.
You and everybody else.
I know. David Letterman has bought a 2011 tuxedo black Ford Fusion. He did it on the air after he asked his staff to invite both Nissan and Ford dealers. Ford got to the studio first. They negotiated a price, $25,750, and David Letterman drove off in the car that very night. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Hey, GM and Ford are really turning their attention big time now to operations in Europe and Asia. This has been growing through the years. Now the focus is almost like they're going full guns here. The automakers are looking to fix
Hey, I
overseas
forgot when
divisions.
you were talking about the space shuttle to pick up my toy orbiter that I have here in the studio.
Your toy orbiter?
Those of you watching on Fox 47, I have this prop. On CNN, you ever see when they're talking about the shuttle, they have that little rocket next to them there?
Yeah.
So I pick it up. I mean, you can't see it on the radio, obviously. Well, you could if you're watching on Fox 47 or on YouTube. But
use your imagination.
It's a small little United States space shuttle. It's a prop that I hold in my hand. And a lot of people don't know this, but the actual thing that looks like an airplane is not the space shuttle. It's only the orbiter. The space shuttle proper are the 3 external tanks that are attached to the space shuttle. Did you know that?
So that's how that
The
works.
solid rocket boosters and the liquid boosters.
I never knew.
Yeah. Anyway,
That's
sorry to
pretty
interrupt. 43 seconds. What's left?
Well, I tell you, the folks in Kalamazoo, quite a few, First of all, right, they had no electricity as a result of the bad storm. And then a water main break. That's the latest thing. This happened yesterday, and it's also impacting quite a few this morning as well. 500,000 gallons of water gushing into the streets, and that water's got to go somewhere. You can't corral all of that, and guess where a lot of it's ending up? Yeah, in people's basements of all places. So they're waking up this morning having to deal with that. First the power goes out, and now they've got water in the basement and all over the place.
Hey, there was a fight on the air yesterday between Piers Morgan and Larry King. We're going to play that for you coming up, an argument, and also the salacious new details from the Sarah Palin tell-all. Coming next. Stay tuned for that. He's Gary Austin. I'm Michael Patrick Shields. We're back in a flash. 23 minutes after the hour, Michael Patrick Shields heard all across the state of Michigan. My own personal space shuttle sitting outside on the street here. It's the 2008 Chevy Trailblazer from Hyundai of Lansing. I'm test driving it. It's got a black exterior and a cloth interior. Here's the best part about it. It's below Blue Book value, only $18,795. $18,000, $795. The Blue Book value is $22,000. So if you want it, go to Hyundai of Lansing, Cheryl Freeborough's outfit, online at HyundaiofLansing.com. Anywhere in the state, she'll even ship it to you. And it's sitting right in front of our studio here, if you happen to see it. It's on the Avenue of Michigan, just a couple blocks from the Capitol. And the sticker's right on the windshield, so you know that's the one. I'm enjoying it, but if you want it, they'll take that baby away from me in no time at all, even if you just want to test drive it. 23 minutes after the hour, some people are test driving their candidates for the upcoming presidential election. I think it's rather certain that President Obama will get nominated by the Democrats, but who will be the Republican choice is still up in the air. And it's presumed, isn't it, too, that Sarah Palin, the former Alaska governor, will be one of those candidates. I think most people expect. She seems to be making all the moves that lead toward a presidential run. Or is she? Let's ask John Truscott from the Truscott Group. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Michael Patrick.
I got it wrong, though. It's Rossman, Truscott Rossman. Which way is it again?
Truscott Rossman.
Truscott Rossman. Okay.
Yep.
I see his name comes first. What do you think? When you look at the Sarah Palin machinations, if you will, is she lining up for a presidential run?
She's definitely doing all the things you need to do in order to run, but a lot of people get into this game, they kind of test the waters, see how things go, and then in the end, a lot of people still get through Iowa and New Hampshire and then decide, well, this isn't quite going to work. So, she's doing all the right things. Whether she gets in the end, who knows? It remains to be seen. I think the media will be so absolutely brutal on her that it'll make it difficult for her to make it to the end, but, at a minimum, she's going to be a major influence in the primary and in Republican politics.
Well, she's going to have to figure out which news sources she reads in case somebody asks her that again. That's one question she's going to have to answer.
Yeah.
But now here's the tricky part. She can run, but she's making a lot of money from her media outlets, right? Fox News being the main contributor, I think. She'd have to give that up in order to officially file, wouldn't she?
She's doing incredibly well. And, there are times that some people get into a race like this, whether it's, U.S. Senate or president or whatever it may be, because they want to increase their speaking fees.
Yeah.
Or they're writing a book and they use it for marketing for the book. So there are ulterior motives. And, a lot of times it's about building name ID. It's about building credibility and things like that. I don't think that she's using it for that purpose, but you have to keep in mind some people do get in to do that.
Yeah, why not? I mean, after all, as long as she can string it out and keep people guessing, her face appears on television, her name appears in the newspaper. That's all valuable, right?
I would have to think that what she's achieved now and the amount of money that she's making is probably beyond her wildest dreams. So obviously that will be a factor. Now the thing is, how much longevity do you have as you get past the cycle where you were a candidate? So, does it stay at that high level or does it drain off over time? And there's really no way to predict that. But I think by her activity, her appearances, what she's doing, and the rumors about running for president, it keeps her going very strong for at least another cycle.
John Truscott got Governor Engler elected and then was his communications person for 12 years, and then he ran the DeVos campaign and consulted on the Pete Hoekstra campaign as well. And there is this book coming out, I guess, called In Blind Allegiance to Sarah Palin, a memoir of tumultuous years. And in this book, this fella called Frank Bailey, who joined the gubernatorial campaign back in 2006, has 60,000 emails, apparently, that he exchanged with Sarah Palin. And in one of them, she writes, "I hate this damn job." Will people take this book seriously? And if that's the worst of the worst, how bad is that?
Yeah, well, my approach to this is that this guy has to be a traitor. I mean, when you sign up for this stuff, you assume a certain level of dignity, of trust, of which this person must have absolutely none. You do not do this to somebody who's been loyal to you, who signed your paycheck. It's just absolutely wrong, and you know it's done throughout time and at different levels of politics. But I think it says a lot about the character of the person that would do something like this, which means they have very little character. But you know, in the end, I think a lot of people will consider the source and the fact that somebody says, "I hate this job." I mean, I don't care what job you're in. If you didn't have a day where you said, "I hate this job," or said something negative about it, then you're just not human.
Well, you know, like considering that you worked with Congressman Hoekstra and Dick DeVos and John Engler, you must have, not that you would have saved them, and I don't think there was email in the Engler era, but you would have had communications that were candid, that would be salacious if they were printed in the newspaper, right?
Sure. And you know, the thing is that as a candidate, as a member of staff, you assume a certain level of trust, so you can have that kind of candor. I mean, imagine in a campaign, and these are 24 hours a day, you work unbelievably hard in very difficult situations, and a lot of things come up. I mean, for example, you know, there was a lot of, 4 years ago, I guess a lot of media were asking for Dick DeVos's tax returns. And he said, well, I'd have to bring them in on pallets. Well, I saw these numbers. You know, I would never go out and talk about them. I mean, this is private, confidential information. And so, yeah, I've seen a lot of things, but I would never go out and talk about it. I would never reveal an email. I would never do anything to hurt or harm a candidate that I worked for.
After that CPAC convention, who would you think is the front runner right now in the Republican primary?
You know, I still think it's Mitt Romney just because of his organization, his name ID. He's been out there working, you know, in this last cycle. He raised money and did appearances with a lot of candidates. So he has a lot of political capital that he has built up. I mean, it's kind of a one-note attack against him right now, saying that his health care plan in Massachusetts is like Obamacare. So he has to deal with that effectively. If he can deal with that effectively, I think he's got a really good shot to go all the way. But don't discount other governors. I think that America is looking for somebody who's actually run something, who's been accountable, and who has a record. And there's a whole string of great governors out there. Some who will run and some who will just say, you know, I'm not getting in that game. But there's a lot of good people out there. Can
our old friend Governor Haley Barbour make a serious run?
I think he can. I mean, he's a guy, I mean, you know him, I know him. He's very endearing. He's got a great sense of humor, and he's one of the smartest strategists I've ever met. I mean, there are some other things that, you know, the private eye firms will have a heyday, you know, going after him. But he's a very strong leader. He's done great things in Mississippi, and I would think he definitely has to be on that list.
He's a regular guy, and that's why you say that the private eye firms will be after him. I mean, if you open up my book, Invite Yourself to the Party, there's an item about him in there that's, I don't know, I guess in this modern media age, people would be all riled up about, but the simple fact is he is a human being. But can he get past the accent? Not him, but can the voters get past the accent?
You know, I kind of like his accent. You know, I've spent enough time around it. I consider it endearing. But I mean, you're absolutely right. You know, but when you talk about accents, it's a lot of people in New York or you know on the East Coast who think that they're superior to everybody else, and folks in New York probably aren't the primary voting bloc in the Republican Party. So you have to consider where the votes are actually coming from, and the South is growing dramatically. So you know, more and more votes are coming from the South, so I think that's less and less of an issue over time.
Well, there was a Southern governor from not too far from there. Border State, in fact, did pretty good a couple terms, didn't he?
There have been a couple Southern governors in the last 30 or so years. So, I mean, they can do it. And again, on the Republican side, a lot of or most of the Southern states are voting Republican. So they are a very heavy voting bloc, and they have to be taken extremely seriously.
Speaking of people who have to be taken seriously, this formation of Michigan Film First, suddenly mobilized, the governor has, essentially done away with the tax credit if it passes, putting the cap down to $25 million a year, and Hollywood's like saying, yeah, well, whatever, we're out of here. Are we going to save the movie business in Michigan?
We're trying. I think the credit will look a little different than it does today. I mean, everybody admits it's the most aggressive credit anywhere in the country, and that's why a number of films have been coming here. I think there can be some adjustments to it. The governor has proposed, virtual elimination, which we're already seeing some very, very big budget films pulling out of Michigan, and there are more to follow. But I don't think that the legislature and the decision makers really understand the impact of what's happened with the film industry over the last couple of years. It's grown by leaps and bounds. It's bringing hundreds of millions of dollars in economic activity to Michigan, and it's really incumbent upon us to really get out and tell that story about what's been going on and how the impact on people who didn't have jobs and now they're working on a film crew, or they're with the makeup crew, or doing whatever. There are about 7,000 people that are employed now in this industry, and it continues to grow. And we now have trained crews and things like that will bring more films in. So, it's one of those very difficult issues. I understand the budget process and how tough it is, but you also have to look at the other side, and that if you take away the credit, then the revenue that came in as a result of those credits has to be taken off the bottom line for the budget as well. And I don't think that they've accounted for that. You
really think that this is something the governor is going to allow some wiggle room on?
Judging by things that he has said to people in the business, I think he's an honorable guy. I think he wants to do the right thing, and, we'll just kind of take him at his word that, there are going to be some changes, but let's try to keep it in place. He told some folks, let's give it about 2 years and see what happens, then you come to me and make your case. Did it create jobs or not? And if it didn't, then it goes away. And I think the industry folks have agreed with that. If it's not working, it should go away. But if it is working, let's treat it like we should and acknowledge the good that it's doing for the state.
It's been in place about 2 years, hasn't it?
2 or 3. And everybody assumed, the first year it would be small budget films, independent films, things like that, which it was. But then as you got people trained, then the bigger films would come in, the bigger money would come in. And frankly, it takes a couple of years to get a film cited and do all the background work that you need to do on it. And now we have been getting, The Avengers, a big superhero movie, which was well over $100 million production, was slated for Michigan. They have pulled out now. But there are a number of others that were in line to do that are now looking away from Michigan. But I still think there are opportunities to bring some of them back, should the credits stay in place.
Did Governor Engler ever go to the State of the City speech in Detroit?
I think he went to 1 or 2 of them.
Did he? Okay.
Yeah, he didn't make a practice to go to all of them, but I think he has been to them, yeah.
Who would have thought that Governor Snyder's first public fight would have been with actor Jeff Daniels? It's a surprise. It's John Truscott from Truscott Rossman at 35 minutes after the hour. My friend, we'll talk again soon. Michael Patrick Shields back in a flash. 20 minutes before the hour on this Thursday morning. President Obama is condemning the ongoing violent crackdown on protesters in Libya. Here's what the president said.
These actions violate international norms and every standard of common decency. This violence must stop.
The longtime Libyan dictator Muammar Gaddafi is continuing efforts to quell anti-government demonstrations. And Obama is, as you heard, calling these outrageous and unacceptable. Human rights have to be respected. And he said all options on Libya will be considered, including international sanctions. Whoa, that's scary. Meantime, the president said his highest priority involves getting American citizens safely out of Libya. There are evacuations underway. Dr. Rachel Ehrenfeld is the director of the American Center for Democracy and author of the critically acclaimed book, Funding Evil, How Terrorism is Financed. Thanks for being available this morning. I'm sure your phone is ringing off the hook these days.
Thank you for having me.
We have determined, have we or have we not, that Gaddafi personally ordered the Lockerbie bombing?
We did not. I think that unless we can have actually seized the documents. Hearing now anybody who claims that he heard that the order was given is not reliable. It may or may not be true. But that is because people who are living there, like the former Minister of Justice, who says that he was ordered directly by Gaddafi, perhaps, but that's what you expect him to say.
He claims he has evidence. Do you know what kind of evidence?
If he has the evidence, that will be fine. We'll see what he has.
The effort to get the Lockerbie bomber out of Scotland under humanitarian reasons because he supposedly was going to die.
Well, that was very clear from the beginning that this was a hoax. This was a hoax. You know, actually, I wrote about it at the time I heard that he was going to be released, and said that I didn't know exactly what the deal was, but I said that there must be some oil deal behind it, because it was very clear, and I think it was very clear to anybody who knows anything about the Middle East and Libya and the British that this will be because of a deal.
Well, the Lockerbie bomber was released, went back to Libya, had a hero's welcome. He's still alive, isn't he?
Oh, last we heard he was alive.
Yeah. Gaddafi, 43 years now in power there? Can he ride this out, do you think? Can he prevail in the end?
I don't know. It depends. Apparently, the second largest city, Benghazi, is no longer under his control, if the reports are true. Again, you know, it's very difficult. We see pictures of fire and bombing and mayhem and death on the streets, but we really don't have any way to verify what is going on. But unless, as long as he has support from large part of the military, he can really destroy the whole country, you know, and destroy. Eventually, he'll probably have to go or have to die. But as long as he's still there and parts of the military are with him, he will continue to fight.
Is it the United States' role to condemn from afar, try to propose sanctions and sit back and watch?
Well, this has been really, you know, you kind of chuckled when you said, yeah, this is really, this is very threatening.
The sanctions, yeah.
That's probably what the rest of the world is saying. Now we are going to sanction them. This has been going on now for how many days? And again, people who know Gaddafi know that anything but reasons with him. So why wait? Even the U.S. was waiting. What was it yesterday? That the State Department said that they will be considering evacuation of Americans. There were several families that were still there. I don't know, tens of families of American employees or diplomats. Until they will decide that this is the time to try and rescue them. Really? You know, this is, and then threaten sanctions. Gaddafi. First of all, Gaddafi is, I'm sure, couldn't care less. But if anything, maybe talking with him or trying to threaten him then could have helped. But I doubt it.
On a worldwide basis, with about 20 seconds left, are we seeing the end of the day of the dictators overall?
Far from it. But I think that we are seeing a huge decline in America's prestige.
America's prestige is in huge decline because of the way we're responding or not responding.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, I'm sorry to hear that. Thank you very much for the sobering conversation, to say the least. Dr. Rachel Ehrenfeld, the director of the American Center for Democracy. You can find that at scdemocracy.org, and the critically acclaimed book, Funding Evil, How Terrorism is Financed. It's Michael Patrick Shields. When we get back, the fight yesterday, the argument between Larry King and his replacement, Piers Morgan, took place on CNN. You'll hear it right here in 4 minutes. It's Michael Patrick Shields. So the Englishman Piers Morgan, who has a print background in London at one of the tabloids, and apparently is a judge on America's Got Talent or Britain's Got Talent or whatever, replaced Larry King not that long ago. It was in December. Larry King, after 25 years of hosting CNN's Larry King Live at 9 o'clock and countless years on the radio before that, decided to hang it up. And there were some people who said, well, Larry's past it, time for him to go. You can decide whether you think Larry King was past it, or maybe the break did him some good because he appeared as a guest yesterday on Piers Morgan's show. And the setup was that Larry King was interviewed by the BBC. And Larry King said, Piers Morgan's doing fine, but he was oversold. In other words, there was too much hype, and it's hard for him to live up to it. That was about last week. And Piers Morgan was bound and determined to ask Larry King why he would do that to him, why he would sort of undercut him like that, criticize him like that in his own country. So yesterday, that's exactly what Piers Morgan said when Larry King appeared as a guest on what used to be Larry King's show with Piers Morgan at the helm. Here's how that exchange went.
Now, Larry, look, I have spent the last few months saying following you is like following Frank Sinatra. I couldn't have paid you higher praise.
I didn't know.
You go in my backyard and say I'm an oversold,
if you read the full
undangerous.
quote, I said he's fine. I thought of you up. What you did was, or what they did, maybe you were you being facetious when you said I was dangerous?
Well,
was that an attempt at British humor?
Let me ask you, how many of my shows have you watched?
About 8.
Oh, you have? So
I haven't seen you dangerous yet. I mean, I said you're capable, but what happens is, here's what I think. Supposing, all right, we're going to do 4 specials for CNN. First one's in April. We're still working on them. But supposing I said, this first special will be the greatest special in the history of American television. The best and dangerous.
Yeah, but what was I supposed
It's going to kill you.
But Larry, I can hardly come in and undersell
I can't live up to that.
Yeah, but we couldn't come in and undersell me. I'm following a legend.
No, you don't
You can't follow Sinatra in Vegas and say, by the way, I'm not very good, and this is going to be useless.
Why can't you just say, Piers Morgan, I'm coming, watch me. Piers Morgan starts next Monday. What's wrong with that?
I suppose I've always oversold myself. I quite like doing that. It's quite funny.
But then it's disappointing when you don't.
Well, to you it is. It wasn't to me. I think it's been going quite well.
See, like you told Letterman you were going to punch me, right?
Oh, that's not strictly true. Letterman said to me...
My spy told me.
No, Letterman said to me I needed to punch somebody to get the ratings up. And I said, what if it was Larry? And we decided that punching you would not be a great move.
Not be a great
But now you've challenged me to be dangerous. Maybe I should. But look, I want to show you something. I know where the suspenders in this town, Larry King.
Take the jacket off.
I can't, because I'm too wide up. There's a little flash of my suspenders.
I am honored. See, now that's a tribute.
It is a tribute.
Okay.
You're my hero.
Well, I know that, and I appreciate it. And I appreciate you. I just think you oversold it.
Okay. Well, the honest truth, Larry, is you want to know how I feel? I actually feel incredible privilege and an honor that I am replacing you at CNN. I don't even feel like I'm replacing you. You can't replace someone like you. And every day I do this, my admiration for what you achieved grows because I've done 22 shows. I feel like I've been in a war zone. And you did 7,000 shows in 25 years. And apart from anything else, just the sheer stamina that you showed is awesome. But I do. I feel a great sense of honor and a great sense a great sense of, you know, like the legacy you've left. I carry with it a great responsibility to try and live up to the legacy that you left for me.
I don't know what to say except thank you.
Well, I want you to watch the show and to feel that it gets better and you feel like I'm dangerous. I'll just start hitting people or something.
Well, when you said dangerous, what did you mean?
I think I was only kidding. Really.
Okay,
well,
you see, aha, British humor.
Yeah, it is British humor.
We didn't get it. I'm from Brooklyn.
It's British humor.
In Brooklyn, if you say I'm dangerous,
you Brooklyn guys have never got my jokes.
You better be dangerous.
Let me ask you. I meant that sincerely.
This all started because Piers Morgan claimed he was going to be dangerous, a dangerous interview. What do you make of that little box off there between two egos, Piers Morgan and Larry King? And it was nice to hear. I don't know about you. I thought it was nice to see and hear Larry King again, and he seemed very sharp, and he seemed in command, and he just seemed to dominate that exchange between the two of them. What do you think? 888-900-9966, 888-900-9966. Are you watching Piers Morgan in the evening? Is he living up to Larry King? Not so sure about that. Stephen Threet used to play at the University of Michigan, then went to Arizona State as a quarterback. He's decided to end his football career. He's had 4 concussions in the last 5 years, and so he's going to graduate in May, and that's going to be that. The Red Wings are back in Joe Louis tonight to face off against the Dallas Stars. Dallas Drake, the former Red Wing, will join us a little bit later in the program. The Pistons erased a 16-point deficit yesterday but couldn't overtake the Pacers. They lost by a point, 102-101 in Indianapolis last night. The Pistons go to Philadelphia to take on the 76ers tomorrow. Michigan Wolverines lose at the buzzer on a 3-point play yesterday. Did that really happen? Yes, it did. And next hour, we'll release the list of names that are going to be inducted into the Michigan Sports Hall of Fame. The announcement made yesterday. Tiger Woods is already out in Arizona at the match play tournament, losing to Thomas Bjorn after hitting a 3-wood so far to the right it landed in a desert bush and took 2 shots just to get it back on the grass. Sorry, Tiger. See you later. It's Michael Patrick Shields back right after the news. And we have a no winner last night in the Powerball jackpot. So we're talking about $185 million on Saturday's drawing. The Powerball number yesterday was 29. If you're interested in that, the former White House Chief of Staff, Rahm Emanuel, is not going to have much time to celebrate his victory as Chicago's new mayor. He's overwhelmed. And we are going to talk with Connor Caneen in Chicago coming up shortly. Also, Gary Austin, the anchorman, is with us. Good morning to you, sir.
Michael Patrick, you seem, at first you were a little chipper, but I think reality has set in a little bit here as the morning goes on that you were not the anticipated winner. You had such high hopes of
I did, and I do.
in.
I do. It's just going to be bigger. It's going to be a bigger tax implication come Saturday when I get the $184 million.
I like that optimism. You didn't win this time. The jackpot grows, and that means you'll win more next time.
We have a special guest on the program. It's not President Obama, but President Obama is going to meet with his new council on jobs and competitiveness today. He's going to challenge the business and labor leaders to generate ideas for creating jobs while sustaining the economic recovery. Bill Huizenga, the congressman from Holland, the Republican in his first term in Washington, D.C., is with us this morning. Gary, I'm curious to get his reaction. Good morning, Congressman.
Hey, good morning, MPS. How are you?
Good. If the president were sitting across from you like he will be today with his Council on Jobs, challenging business and labor leaders to generate ideas for creating jobs, what could you possibly say?
Yeah. Well, it starts with a general attitude in government, and I can tell you, as I talk to business people around the district and around Michigan, they do not feel that government at a lot of different levels, whether it's state or federal, are on their side. And and it's not about labor versus owners. It's not about those kinds of things. We're all in the same boat, and we better start pulling on the same oars. And what that means is creating an atmosphere for positive job growth and for entrepreneurs to go out and succeed. How that happens is through regulatory reform and tax reform, and it isn't always just. It is tax levels are a huge implication to it, but the regulatory side is what really will kill people.
We saw, and last couple of days here in Michigan, for instance, there have been a lot of protesters showing up in the Capitol 2 days in a row. Thousands yesterday, hundreds the first day. And they are upset about Governor Snyder's rather, some people say, draconian ideas. I know you're dealing with federal matters now, but did you watch with some level of curiosity the governor's budget proposal?
Yeah, I certainly did. After serving there for 6 years,
Yeah.
And hey, we're inextricably linked. I mean, the feds in the state of Michigan, we are feeling the effects of what's been happening at the federal level here in Michigan for a long time. Yeah, I can tell you, this never happened during the Granholm administration, and that was one of my measures of whether we were really making the kind of cuts that really had to be made. And quite honestly, we never did. Mm-hmm. So, not that you want to see protesters and all this other stuff, but I can tell you, when John Engler came into town back in the early 90s, it was tent city out on the lawn of the Capitol. A lot of people forget that. They just remember, the later years. But there was protests. The state treasurer had to have state trooper escorts going from the Romney building to the Capitol, and it was a tough time in Michigan. Well, guess what? We've had a tough decade, and it's time to start making some of these difficult decisions.
The Justice Department is no longer going to defend the constitutionality of the Defense of Marriage Act. Is that a big departure from the president's previous stance, and what will that do for him politically?
Well, his defense of DOMA, or Defense of Marriage Act, has been tenuous at best in the past.
Yeah.
I don't think most people really believe that he believed that marriage should be defined as one man and one woman. In socially conservative places like Michigan, we even a lot of Democrat friends, they tend to be more conservative, socially conservative Democrats, and a lot of those independents as well. So, I think it will hurt him in certain areas. I think he's looking at having to basically fulfill a campaign pledge. It was something that he talked about, whether it's gays in the military or whether it's a Defense of Marriage Act. There is a constituency that helped him get elected that is expecting that he's going to take care of their issues, and obviously this is one of those issues.
Those campaign pledges are a funny thing, aren't they?
I've noticed that people really actually pay attention, and when you do what you say you're going to do, they like that, and when you don't do what you say you're going to do, they will remind you of that. That's one of the reasons why, we needed to go back and repeal health care. We needed to do the types of things that we're doing on our budget at the federal level. I had staked out a very clear territory when I was running, and people remind me of that, and that's good.
We spoke with a foreign policy expert last hour who said that the image of America is withering under the hot lights of the activities in Egypt and Libya and Bahrain and the rest of the places. Do you feel that's true?
Yeah, it's a tough atmosphere out there right now, and there's some very nervous people in the Middle East. The House of Saud, the Saudis, and the Israelis, I think we've got an opportunity to lead here. I wish, frankly, our attitude towards the Green Revolution in Iran had been what it was for those seeking some freedom in Egypt, but. The United States can stand up and do the right thing, and I think we will. It's just a matter of having the Constitution to do it.
Yeah, well, what exactly do you mean by that, the Constitution to do it? Because
I guess the internal Constitution, the fortitude, not there is a desire of people to be free. We know that, and we've got to be careful of not wanting to have our cake and eat it too. We. Sometimes with elections comes instability. I mean, we've seen that with Hamas in the Middle East, and we've seen that in some other places where people have gotten elected that we will particularly view as friendly. But in general, the attitude of the United States has been to push forward and to allow people to be self-determined. Their governments to be self-determined, and I think that's a positive thing. It's just it comes with some challenges.
Yeah, I mean, isn't the perception in the Middle East that the U.S. likes freedom as long as they pick the leader that we like?
Yeah, sure, and that's a fair criticism of who wouldn't. Yeah. We're looking for friends, and whether it's in Afghanistan or Iraq or in some other country, we can't have our cake and eat it too. We either are going to allow free elections to happen, or we're not. And I think it does then put a burden on us to make sure that we are pushing our agenda, and we are pushing. Whether it's through relationships and those kinds of things, we need to lead, and people will follow that lead. I think it's smart. During the Bush administration, one of the things that they started to do was on food aid, for example, that would go around the world. They started putting where it was from, and start trying to build some ties and some connections in people's heads about where this help is coming from. And we saw that whether it was in World War II, which my dad is a veteran of, or whether it's in Korea or others. We saw soldiers then make those local connections, and still, whether it's in the Philippines or other places, there's an affinity for Americans because they're able to make that connection.
Speaking of food, what's your favorite Washington restaurant so far?
You know, I've always been sort of partial towards Tortilla Coast. Chips are great. It's close to the capital, and for my little Dutch heart, it's by Washington standards isn't too expensive.
You mean you don't go sit at the Palm or the Capitol Grill with all the swells and CNBCs?
Yeah, no, that's hey, I love a good steak like anybody else, but yeah, I have my limits.
Okay. Thank you very much for the chat this morning. We sure appreciate it. We'll talk again soon.
All right, see you, MPS.
Congressman Bill Huizenga from West Michigan, the Republican. Gary Austin, I got about a minute and 11 seconds if you want to bring us up to date on what's going on in the rest of the world.
All right. Your wish is my command.
Why, thank you.
Coming off that big one on Tuesday, more protest rallies at the Capitol yesterday. Quite a few union members, along with police and firefighters in on this, all upset over a number of things lawmakers are considering, like doing away with binding arbitration, taxing pensions, and cutting salaries of state workers. A number of teachers from Detroit were also there upset. Budget problems in Detroit are prompting quite a few school closings, leading to classrooms with as many as 60 kids in them.
Gary, that might be the congressman's favorite restaurant, but how many times a week can you eat Mexican?
Oh, geez.
You can't eat that every night. You can't do that.
I could. You couldn't?
No.
Oh.
Destroys your stomach, doesn't it?
No.
Well, he's only in Washington, he gets there probably Monday and leaves on Friday. So if it's his favorite restaurant and he eats Mexican twice a week?
Yeah.
Oh.
Leave it to food to get your attention
That's
in a hurry.
That might be much. I'm going to have to try that next time I'm in Washington, though.
Yeah, you should report back.
18 minutes after the hour, Michael Patrick Shields. We're going to Chicago next. See how Rahm Emanuel's doing. 24 minutes after the hour, nice to have you with us. I mentioned that I would tell you the list of new inductees. Well, they will be inducted into the Michigan Sports Hall of Fame. Lloyd Carr, Michigan's former football coach, enters the Hall after a 13-year career that produced a 122-40 record and that national title in the Rose Bowl in 1997. Jerome Bettis is the bus. Remember, he played in the Super Bowl right in his hometown at Ford Field. He's going in for the Steelers. They beat the Seattle Seahawks that year. He's going into the Michigan Sports Hall of Fame. Dick LeBeau won the Super Bowl twice as the Steelers' defensive coordinator. He played 14 seasons as a defensive back with the Detroit Lions. Also, some others that you may not know having to do with softball and so forth. We'll get the full list for you later. But those are the highlights, I guess. Carl Banks, too, by the way. Michigan State All-American linebacker from Flint, played 11 years in the NFL for the Giants, the Redskins, and the Browns. Those are the people. John Spring, Ron Thompson, Carol Hutchins is going in to the Michigan Sports Hall of Fame, and we will endeavor to speak to all of them between now and Induction Day. Stephen Threets decided to end his football career. Remember, he played at the University of Michigan for a while as a quarterback, went out to Tempe, but he's had too many concussions, and he's decided enough is enough. Tigers are going to open spring training play action in the Grapefruit League tomorrow with their traditional game against Florida Southern. That'll be at 1 o'clock. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a baseball game, and we're here in the dead of winter in the cold of Michigan. Just remember how Ernie Harwell used to start that broadcast every year when the Tigers were finally back in action in Florida, and he did it just like this.
Well, lo, the winter's past, the rains are over and gone, the flowers appear on the earth, the time of the singing of birds is here, and the voice of the turtle is heard in our land.
Feel a little warmer all over now? I do. The Red Wings are back in action at Joe Louis Arena tonight. They've got the Dallas Stars. We'll talk to Dallas Drake, who won the Stanley Cup with the Red Wings in 2008. And he's retired now. He'll be with us. He's a Northern Michigan University grad, by the way. The University of Michigan basketball team led 52-50 yesterday over the mighty Wisconsin with just 5 seconds left in the game. But that's when the Badgers' Josh Gasser got the ball. And here's what happened.
Gasser inbounds to Taylor. Taylor against the double team. To Gasser for three. Oh, no! He faked it! No!
Yes. 3-pointer to win the game for the Wisconsin Badgers, 53-52. While Governor Snyder sat courtside with the mayor of the city of Detroit, Dave Bing, there. At Chrysler Arena, the Pistons lost yesterday by a single point. They were down by 16, battled back, ended up losing by a point to the Pacers. They go to Philadelphia tonight. Tiger Woods already knocked out of the match play tournament. In the very first round out there in Arizona, he hit a shot that was so bad that it took 2 shots just to get back into the fairway. Very unusual for Tiger, a brush with Mother Nature, and he is toast. Thomas Bjorn knocks him out, and still Tiger, not the old Tiger we used to know, is he, anymore? 28 minutes after the hour, Michael Patrick Shields heard all across the state of Michigan. State Senator Rick Jones, the Republican from Grand Ledge, on the other end of our line. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
There was some testimony yesterday having to do with the Michigan Sex Offender Registry. You want to alter the registry and how it operates. How do you want to alter it and why?
Well, we're required to come in compliance with the federal law. It's called the Adam Walsh Child Protection Act. And what it does is it takes your sex offenders, puts them into 3 tiers so that people know who the most dangerous child predators are. They will be tier number 3, and they will be required to report in every 3 months, unlike somebody with a non-contact offense that would be typically checking once a year. Now, as long as we had the legislation going, we decided to take care of some other problems that's allowed by Adam Walsh, the Romeo and Juliet cases. The cases where you have a 17-year-old boy, 15-year-old girlfriend, consensual act, they will be taken off the list.
So what is it? I never heard of that before, Romeo and Juliet. You mean that if a 17-year-old and a 15-year-old have relations, the 17-year-old goes on the offender list?
Well, at age 17 in the state of Michigan, you are an adult. So whether it be shoplifting or a sexual act, you're an adult in the state of Michigan. Now, it is illegal for anyone to have sex with somebody under the age of 16. And typically what happens, a 17-year-old boy in high school has a 14 or 15-year-old girlfriend.
Yep.
They get in trouble. They get caught. And even though it's consensual, sometimes the judge charges, the boy gets some charges against him, and he gets into trouble. Well, they've been putting them on the sex offender list. The media has dubbed it the Romeo and Juliet Act. And with this legislation, we're taking care of that. So those sort of folks will come off the list.
Okay. Overall, we're sort of tiering then the sex offender list, and it's not weakening it, is it?
Oh, absolutely not. As a former sheriff, I would never, ever be involved with weakening the list. But we're improving it, so we're putting people into 3 tiers, so you will know, as a family, if you pull the list up, who the dangerous child predator is, the tier 3 offender. And we're strengthening it by making them report every 3 months where they're at. If they don't, it's a felony. They must come in and report where they're at.
Did I hear something about you wanting to have Michigan legislators pay for some of their health insurance?
Absolutely. This came to mind when Governor Snyder gave his budget proposal, and his budget director said that perhaps educators, K-12 educators, should be paying 20% of their health insurance, just like most are in the private sector. So I thought to myself, well, I wonder what I'm paying. Well, I checked, and I'm paying 7.6%. Senators and other legislators are paying in the state somewhere between 3 to 7.6% in that range, depending what plan they pick. And so I am drafting a bill to make every legislator and the governor and the lieutenant governor pay 20% of their health insurance.
You better have somebody start your car in Grand Ledge from now on, don't you think?
Well, I actually have a lot of support.
Do you?
A number of senators have said, it's got to be done. We need to have shared sacrifice. We took a 10% pay cut January 1. Now it's time to pay more for our health insurance. We've got to set an example.
Do you know what the percentage is sort of in the private sector, what the average percentage is of what people pay for their own health care?
Yes. Different sources say that the average person in the private sector has to pay 20%
I see.
of their health insurance cost.
Okay, so you want to just bring the state level in line, at least at the legislator level, with the public sector.
Yes, I can't support teachers having to pay 20% if I'm not making every legislator do it also.
Okay, we got you loud and clear. Thanks for the quick call this morning. We sure appreciate it. That's State Senator Rick Jones, the Republican from Grand Ledge. Speaking of politics, Democrat Rahm Emanuel, who is the White House Chief of Staff, has been elected mayor of Chicago. Connor Cunneen, a Chicago resident. IrishmanSpeaks.com is where you can find him. He's an author and business consultant and a good friend of the program. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Michael Patrick. How are you?
How do you like your new mayor?
It's going to be interesting. The guy has got a really tough challenge ahead of him. I mean, Chicago is in deep trouble by any standards, more so than almost any other city in the United States. So he's got big problems ahead of him. But he's very competent at what he has done. We'll see if he's competent at having to work in a situation where you've got to get a fair amount of compromise and give and take, I think.
You think he's going to find out that it's better to have the king's ear than to be the king?
Well, I think this is a poisonous chalice for anyone, Michael Patrick, but someone somewhere has got to take tough decisions, and Rahm Emanuel probably is the guy to take the tough decisions. The question is whether or not he can force them through in an organization that hasn't really changed or has been molded to Daley's influence for 22 years. And Chicago is a great city. They say it's the city that works well, but it works well because of a lot of the interesting mechanisms that Daley has had over the years, I think.
Following a 22-year mayor like Richard Daley with the last name Daley is not easy either, is it?
It isn't, and that's one of the challenges. I mean, whether it was in politics or whether it's in the corporate environment, when you've got someone who set a culture for 22-plus years, as Mayor Richard M. Daley has done, for anyone to come in and try and make their own changes is going to be extraordinarily difficult. And in an organization like a city of Chicago, where you can't force things through necessarily, where you might be able to do it in the corporate environment, it's going to be a very significant cultural as well as a financial challenge, I think.
Speaking of handoffs like that, very quickly, Piers Morgan and Larry King had a little bit of a dust-up yesterday. How do you think Piers Morgan is doing in the shadow of Larry King?
To my surprise, I think he is doing absolutely brilliantly. I was not a Larry King fan for a number of years, but Morgan has had some excellent guests on, in my opinion, and has had good conversations with them. He's not a guy I particularly respected initially, but I do like the guy now. He does his homework, and I think for a lot of his guests, they've been compelling interviews.
IrishmanSpeaks.com is where you can get corporate advice from Connor Cunneen and his books, and we will talk on St. Patrick's Day to Connor Cunneen. He can help you get a job, too. IrishmanSpeaks.com. Bill Cosby, the legend, is next. The legendary, well, comedian's not really enough of a word to describe what Bill Cosby means to America. He's coming to Grand Rapids March 13th at the Voss Performance Hall at 4:30 and 7:30 performances for Gilda's Laugh Fest. And he's on the other end of our line this morning. Good morning, Mr. Cosby.
Hey, good morning.
I'm not sure. I'm curious about how you're going to be welcomed here in Michigan for this reason only. I took a little clip from a speech you gave at Carnegie Mellon, and here's what you said.
Nerds. Why anybody would accept themselves as nerds bothers me. If I'm looking at nerds, according to nerds, I think it has to do with something about you don't know how to mingle. You don't know how to get along with other people. Or dance. Or just stand in a room and look human.
We've got a brand new governor, Rick Snyder, who got elected by calling himself one tough nerd, Mr. Cosby.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, the speech also goes on to say that without nerds,
what have you got? A whole lot of things are missing. But Carnegie Mellon is a wonderful school. We had a good time that day.
It's a beautiful speech that you gave. It's 20 minutes long, and I've been shuffling it around on YouTube to people that I care about, because I'll tell you, by the time you got done giving the speech, I was really rather emotional. Here's the other end of that speech, and I think anybody listening right now can take heart with Bill Cosby's message in these tough economic times. You may be having a tough time at home, at work. You may be trying to just cover the nut. Here's what Mr. Cosby said in the rest of that speech.
Don't talk yourself into not being you at any time. You don't have an excuse that works when you say, but I was nervous. That's not you. That's not how you got here. Yeah, you can be nervous. It's good for you. It tunes you. But people want to see you. I don't care what you do. When you're good, then you bring you out.
You don't get nervous going on stage anymore after all these years, do you, or do you?
No. No, not necessary. But that day at Mr. Kelly's in Chicago, way back, I allowed myself to talk myself into not being me when I went on stage. And I did a 35-minute comedy act in 18 minutes.
Yeah. We can all relate. We've given Rotary speeches and presentations where we could barely get the words out. Did you happen to catch Hugh Hefner this week on Piers Morgan? He had his new fiance with him. And the reason I ask about Hugh Hefner, I know that you know him. I know that you've done some television with him. He's 80-something, marrying a 20-something. It's not what most people would think of as a match made in heaven, right?
I don't know. I don't know. Wait a minute. You're 80 years old, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if a guy's not married and he's 80, what is he really doing when you think about it? So to have a 20-something, and I guess she's got to be absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, she is.
To be 80 and have the gorgeous, hey, I just think it bothers other people more than it would bother him.
Yeah, and it doesn't.
You know, to people watching this guy walk around, and looking at her, and then they start with how disgusting it is, and I'm not too sure it is.
Hey, whatever floats their boat, and she's already said to him, They don't have to be exclusive. I mean, they have some pretty...
Listen to the two of us. All we keep saying is, hey.
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 I know you're a huge Philadelphia Eagles fan. Have you spent any time with Michael Vick, or would you like to?
No. That situation, I think by the time you put in your time in federal prison, and then you come out, and your job is to try and get back into a sport that says if a guy puts his hands on you on the other team, he can throw you in any direction he wants to, and without a problem. And I mean, the thing that I was happy about with Michael was when he said that he never really studied the plays. He never really seriously made a commitment to learning to be a quarterback. He just kind of let himself be out there. But now he studies the plays. He studies. That makes sense to me.
Life-changing for Michael Vick, and Bill Cosby's show could be life-changing for you. Thank you so much for the time, Mr. Cosby, and for coming back to Michigan. We'll never forget what you did for Detroit. Let's get a quick market report from Doug Adler at Raymond James. We had a pretty good 3 weeks of bulls, but now all of a sudden the bears are showing their teeth, Doug?
They are, Michael Patrick, in a big way. In fact, just in the last 2 sessions, the NASDAQ, which has been certainly one of the stronger parts of the market, technology-laden index, down about 110 points just in the last 2 sessions. I mean, that's massive. You got a lot of folks running through the exit door right now, and it looks like it's going to accelerate again this morning. Now we'll see how trade goes throughout the session, but I will tell you on the open, we've got some pressure because crude oil now up again about $3.50 a barrel. Crude is up just since last Thursday, Michael Patrick, about 20%. And that's why you've seen probably a 20-25% leap at the gas station. And that's the byproduct of what's happening in the futures market.
The Dow yesterday down 107, the NASDAQ down 33, the S&P lost 8 points, and you say the Dow futures are down 55 this morning?
Down 55 this morning. They've actually softened a little bit more, 61 now, S&P about 8.5. And I'll tell you, one thing that's been really interesting to me the last 2 sessions is if you look back to the financial crisis back in 2008, investors really ran for the U.S. dollar. So the dollar had a massive rally as folks went to the reserve currency of the world, the U.S. dollar. Tuesday when the market was down, the dollar was essentially flat. Yesterday, a lot of damage again, things in the Middle East, Africa heating up, as we know. Mm-hmm. And the dollar was down about 0.5% against other indexes, or currencies, rather. Well, so, you've heard all the chatter over the last few years, and you've seen the gold bugs pounding the table that the dollar's in real trouble, you need to buy metals, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And really, up until now, we hadn't seen any kind of pressure on the dollar, so to speak, in times of crisis. But at least the last 2 days, and 2 days doesn't certainly make the trend, but it's something to keep an eye on. It's an important development, I think. We'll just have to see.
All right, we will see and get with your broker today if you want to, and Doug Adler might be your broker, or he might end up being your broker at Raymond James. Thanks for the warning, Doug. We sure appreciate it. There's supposed to be a speech today from Muammar Gaddafi, which could obviously cause a ripple on the financial markets due to the oil implications. 7 minutes now before the hour. Rich Kincaid is with us, and Rich Kincaid is a veteran sportscaster, the immediate past president of the Detroit Sports Broadcasters Association. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Michael Patrick.
I'm very excited. You're going to be guest hosting for me tomorrow on the Friday before the Academy Awards. Sunday night.
Yeah, I've been actually thinking about going out and seeing a movie or two today.
I think that would be good preparation. And what I'm going to do is I'm not going to tell you where, but I am going to go to a place known for a lot of celebrities hanging out there. And I'll call you at the end of tomorrow's program. I will be on the search for the celebrities that are not nominated for the Academy Awards, who are maybe hanging out in this particular place, and we'll chat.
So clearly you're going to DeWitt.
Holt. It'll be.
Oh, there you go.
No, it'll be like a Where's Matt Lauer sort of thing. So I'll ring you from this glamorous celebrity hideout. But speaking of stars, they have announced the inductees into the Michigan Sports Hall of Fame, and I have a feeling you know every single one of these people. So I thought we'd get your knee-jerk reaction, if that's okay.
Super.
By the way, were you one of the people who voted?
No, actually, they for some reason stopped sending me a ballot about a year or two ago. Some clerical error, no doubt. There's actually a backstory as to why. I'm sadly involved in a bit of a feud with the president of the Michigan Sports Hall of Fame, Jim Stark, who I replaced as president of the Detroit Sports Broadcasters Association, and I think he's mad at me about that.
What did you do to him?
I didn't do anything. I beat him in an election. So,
that'll do it.
I'd like to think we could still be friends. I mean, Will Tiemann, actually, he succeeded me, and I think Will Tiemann's a great guy.
Yeah.
So, it's hard to figure these things.
And just think, Republican governor yesterday sat down with a Democratic mayor of Detroit on the court side there at the Michigan basketball game. They seem to be getting along fine.
That'll be fine. And, there's an interesting meeting tonight, way off topic, Michael Patrick, but about the Michigan film tax credit. There's an interesting meeting tonight being held at one of the production houses here in suburban Detroit. Mitch Albom's going to be there, for example, and a bunch of people that are involved in the industry in Michigan. And they're going to try to hash through these proposed cuts to the film tax credit.
Let's go through the list real quickly here. Your knee-jerk reaction to each one of them. Lloyd Carr, the former Michigan football coach.
should still be the Michigan football coach, still wants to be the Michigan football coach. I never figured out why Michigan fans turned on this guy. His team's won, on average, over 10 games a season. Wasn't good enough for the fans in Ann Arbor. Now they're reaping the whirlwind, but that's a good pick.
It was the Appalachian State loss that really did him in, wasn't it?
I believe that was Rodriguez.
No, I don't.
Who lost that game?
No, that was Lloyd Carr. I'm sorry. That
Was
was,
it?
I
Okay.
think, pushing more there. Oh, Jerome Bettis, the bus.
Yeah, gotta be, right? I mean, not a huge Michigan tie, played his high school ball here, of course, but certainly the name that he's made for himself and the kind of person that he is. Yeah, he's a good pick.
Dick LeBeau.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a guy, one of the great Lions of all time. Certainly one of the best secondary players that the Lions have ever had, and he's still over 70 years old and coaching in the NFL. Pretty good.
Carl Banks.
Oh, nice, good, nice pick there. Great Michigan Stater, great Spartan, great New York Giant after that. Yeah. So far I haven't found a guy that I disagree with.
Okay, that's excellent news. Michigan lost yesterday at the buzzer on a 3-point play, and Rich Kincaid will be here tomorrow. By the way, Tiger Woods knocked out of the match play in round 1. How about that, huh?
Man, did you see him play that 19th hole? Holy cow.
He hit it 3 fairways over, took 2 shots just to get back in.
Exactly. Yeah, that's something.
We'll talk to you tomorrow from a secret celebrity location, and Rich Kincaid will be here in the studio. It's Michael Patrick Shields. Television viewers, talk to you tomorrow. Radio listeners, stay right where you are. There's another hour of Your Thursday with Michael Patrick Shields.